Traditional MOBAs are slowly dying. Dota 2's player base has been stagnant since about 2018, and recently, rioters have come out saying that the League of Legends audience is aging up, and they're having a hard time attracting new players. The insanely high barriers of entry that League and Dota have, along with their reputation for pretty toxic communities, tend to scare a lot of younger gamers off. While most of us seniors who've unfortunately stuck around for the past decade now have more important things to worry about other than our MMR. Like a mortgage, partner, or kids. But not all hope is lost for MOBAs. Developers still see the amazing potential this genre has to offer an extremely challenging but rewarding style of gameplay. What they need to do is innovate on the current MOBA formula to better suit the wants of today's gamers.
Hit or miss, I guess they never miss.
Which is why today we're going to analyze 2 games, hoping to break down these barriers of entry and bring some new life into the stagnating MOBA space, and maybe, one day, even become spiritual successors to the 2 current titans, Dota 2 and League of Legends. The first game we're going to look at today, which I'm sure most of you could have predicted, is Valve's new baby, Deadlock, their third-person MOBA hero shooter. And to help with our analysis, we're going to look at Deadlock through the lens of 3 basic questions. Number 1, what makes Deadlock a MOBA? Number 2, how is Deadlock different from Dota 2? And number 3, does Deadlock scratch that competitive MOBA itch? You all know what I'm talking about. That feeling you get from playing a MOBA that's unrivaled by any other game in your Steam library, forcing you to always come crawling back. Speaking of Steam, I'm giving away Steam gift cards to 2 viewers who like, subscribe, and comment on this video, answering the question, do you think the MOBA genre is currently dying? Before we take a deep dive on Deadlock though, let's look at its origin story. Its rumored lead developer is none other than IceFrog, well known in the Dota community for being a lead developer on both Dota 1 and Dota 2. It's thought that since around 2018, he's been leading this other project originally named Neon Prime, a third-person shooter thought to be a mix of Overwatch, TF2, and Dota 2. This project, of course, ended up being Deadlock, and in May of 2024, it opened up for playtesting on Steam. But you were only able to play if you received a playtesting code, which ended up being one of the most brilliant viral marketing plays I've ever seen. That marketing play got Deadlock to hit peaks of over 170,000 concurrent players in its alpha. So now that we're all caught up on Deadlock's history, what exactly makes it a MOBA? Deadlock takes a lot of inspiration from Dota 2 in its game design. It may look like a third-person shooter on the outside, but feels so much more like a MOBA on the inside. For example, Deadlock abandons the usual payload or control-a-point style of gameplay of hero shooters and instead has lanes, minions, farming, structures, items, ability upgrades, jungle monsters, team fights, you name it. It's all the elements that make a MOBA, well, a MOBA. What am I supposed to do against shit like that? Deadlock even has a lot of Dota 2 specific mechanics. For example, there's minion denial, as you're able to essentially shoot your opponent's gold or souls out of the sky, taking them for yourself. Also, the heroes in Deadlock have a very Dota feel, in my opinion. Their abilities are super strong and play towards each hero's strengths and weaknesses, carving out a unique playstyle for everyone on the roster. This is something that I feel Dota does better than League of Legends, as some League champions can feel somewhat similar. However, in Deadlock, every hero that I tried felt very unique and tailored towards a specific type of gameplay. This is why, to me, in many ways, Deadlock feels like a modern spiritual successor to Dota 2. It's like if Dota 2 was made for the current generation of young gamers. It keeps the main feel of a MOBA. This causes Deadlock to not feel as intimidating to younger gamers when jumping in for the first time, as they're at least used to its basic controls and feel, which is something that can't really be said for League and Dota anymore. But then, once they start playing more and more, they get hooked by the immense amount of complexity, competition, creativity, and replayability that these MOBA elements provide to the shooter, making it unlike any other game on the market right now. And to add even more flame to Deadlock's competitive fire, they added a whole other layer of complexity with its advanced movement and verticality. You've got jumps, you've got dashes, you've got dash jumps, you've got jumping and then dashing. There's tons of different variety in how you can move around the map to essentially space for yourself. IceFrog and Valve found an awesome some way to modernize traditional MOBA spacing techniques for a 3D game. With the change from a top-down to a third-person perspective, Deadlock replaces the traditional spacing techniques required in isometric MOBAs by making the most of its new 3D space and verticality. It's this new type of fast-paced, three-dimensional movement, along with the switch from an RTS canvas to that of a hero shooter, that are the main differences between Deadlock and Dota 2. But with all of these similarities and differences, one very big question still remains. Does it scratch that MOBA competitive itch? Well, I sat down and played Deadlock for a day to see if it could capture my smooth brain's attention, and right off the bat, this game intrigued me. Okay, first impressions? Loving the art style. Immediately. This is like exactly my kind of art style. It's fucking sick. First off, like a good boy, I hopped right into the tutorial to get a feel for the game. And just like Dota 2, Valve did a great job with this. Not only did they show me all the basic mechanics necessary to play, they also created a hero sandbox so I could run around and try out some of the characters. I found myself liking Hayes the most initially, so I decided to play some games with her against bots to get more comfortable. After playing a few bot matches, getting used to the lane setups, and lighting up some NPCs,
What am I doing?
I queued for my first PvP match.
Okay, I'm solo laning. So let's see how this goes.
I think you can all imagine how that went. Oh my god, I'm so fucking bad at this game, man. It's not even funny. Like every other MOBA game on the planet, my first game of Deadlock was a complete disaster.
Like, what am I supposed to do against shit like that?
I had no idea what I was doing against actual humans and ended up going a respectable 1-8.
Dog shit fucking team.
Well, it's got the toxicity. That's always good.
This trend, of course, continued on my first day of Deadlock, and I did not win a single match.
Okay. Come on. Ah!
I tried out 2 more heroes along with Hayes. Abrams, who I really didn't have a fun time on.
Yo, can I just go to a lane and farm?
And 7. Thankfully, with 7, I started to get into a bit more of a rhythm.
Holy shit, I'm playing Deadlock! Ah! Okay.
It could have
This game's
been
fucking
because
fun.
it was my
Oh
final
my
match of
God.
the day and things were starting to make a bit more sense, or that I just got a bit lucky.
Holy shit, we actually did something. Holy fuck.
Either way, though, it was this last game of the day where I started to feel that same competitive itch I get from Dota and League.
I have to give this one more day. It's gonna be fun. I want to play more for sure. It's so unique. Like, there hasn't really been a game that's combined these 2 genres like this. It's so interesting.
I wanted to learn more about the game, the heroes, the matchups, so I could have a greater impact and reap the rewards of my first Deadlock win. So, on the next day, when I was supposed to move on with my filming, I instead watched some videos on how to improve as a new Deadlock player so that I could hopefully win my first game in this new MOBA. It was over these first 2 Deadlock wins where I went into like a demon mode and absolutely fell in love with this game.
I haven't had this feeling in a game since League. I'm just gonna say that. Like, 100%.
I found 2 heroes that I really enjoyed playing, and
Even
finally
Dota.
felt like I wasn't completely useless in my matches. I got solo kills, pushed out objectives, and greatly improved my soul counts. I obviously still have a fucking long way to go in terms of being able to play this game with any sort of finesse, but the fact that I was able to get to this point after only 2 days of playing speaks wonders for Deadlock's barrier of entry in comparison to League or Dota. They found a way for Deadlock to retain the most complex elements inside traditional MOBAs, but present it in a more fast-paced, three-dimensional sandbox the next generation of gamers will immediately find familiar. This is not only how Deadlock separates itself from the likes of Dota 2 and League of Legends, but also how it's going to draw in a much younger player base, giving new life to the MOBA genre as a whole. It's more appealing to the modern gamer, and 100% scratches the MOBA competitive itch that makes you just want to keep playing more. It's a pretty damn special game that already has me hooked in its alpha stage of development. In a few years from now, when Deadlock is fully released and other MOBA titles continue to show stagnating player growth, I see a world where Deadlock truly rivals these games and has a player count similar to that of Dota 2 today. It's that good, and brings some much needed novelty and new blood into the MOBA space. I cannot wait to see the competitive scene inside of Deadlock. But Deadlock isn't the only game trying to take over some MOBA market share. there's another new game studio with tons of experienced developers attempting to break in with their title, Supervive. Supervive is a battle royale hero shooter MOBA that is kind of like a combination between Apex Legends and League of Legends. You play in either squads or duos and have to farm, fly, and fight your way around the shrinking map till you're the last squad standing. Just like with Deadlock, we're going to analyze this new MOBA contender by answering 3 questions. What makes Supervive a MOBA? How is Supervive different from League of Legends? And does Supervive scratch that competitive MOBA itch? Supervive is being worked on by Theorycraft Games, a studio filled with a bunch of ex-Riot devs who used to work on League of Legends and Valorant. The studio's founder and CEO, Joe New001 Tung, was an executive producer at Bungie, working on games like Halo 3 and Halo Reach. He then headed to Riot Games to work on League of Legends as a lead producer, and eventually became executive vice president. What's funny is that this one guy had a hand in like all 3 of the games that took up a majority of my childhood, which is quite funny to think about. He then left Riot Games in 2020 to start Theorycraft, and a bunch of other Riot devs followed suit. Their team is packed full of Riot Games talent, so it's pretty obvious where they're going to take inspiration from with their new game. They did a huge marketing blitz with a bunch of League streamers like Tyler1 and Kadrill to try and grow some awareness for their game, before launching an open beta on November 20th, 2024. And so far, the reception has been really positive. Supervive does an amazing job putting the emphasis on the most exciting, engaging, and mechanically challenging part of a MOBA. It's team fights. Ooh. Nice. It's these 4v4 and 2v2 teamfights that make Supervive feel like a MOBA, or specifically like League of Legends. You've got all these unique characters with tons of damage, mobility, and CC in their kits, brawling it out from a top-down perspective. And honestly, they kind of nailed the feeling with these fights, and I'd argue they feel even better than a League of Legends team fight. The characters, or hunters as they're called, are slightly more durable than in League, so the fights last longer. And the map is huge, being a battle royale, meaning you have to constantly adapt to the changing terrain. They found this great balance between giving the hunters a shit ton of power, while also having room for tons of outplays and skill expression in every fight. And the best part is, because this game is a battle royale, you're fighting with other squads all the time. It's kind of like if League of Legends was just one massive continuing team fight. It's fun, it's fast-paced, and could become extremely mechanically intensive as you climb up the ranks. So immediately on the surface, this game looks a lot like League of Legends. You got the top-down perspective, fun, agile characters, massive fights, but in actuality, this game doesn't feel like League of Legends, or honestly a MOBA at all. Now, obviously, this can be seen as either a good or a bad thing, but I do need to point out all of these differences from a more traditional MOBA. You see, to make room for the battle royale structure and constant fighting nature of Supervive, Theorycraft made the decision to streamline and simplify the many other MOBA elements inside the game. For example, the game has no lanes or minions, as it takes place on a battle royale map. So, to counteract this, they instead put creep camps throughout the massive map for you and your team to farm. This is your way to increase your level, unlock new abilities, and upgrade your equipment. Speaking of equipment, these are your items inside of Supervive. The equipment and shop systems have been greatly simplified in comparison to other MOBAs, with quite limited choices. You have 3 main equipment slots. For me, usually it was 1 helmet, 1 weapon, and 1 pair of boots. These are upgradable throughout the match from anywhere, by collecting shards from farming those creeps or eliminating other players. There's no need to go to the shop to upgrade your items. There's little icons that appear above your equipment when you have enough shards to upgrade them. However, the equipment options you have are pretty limited, so it's overall just a very dumbed down item system inside of Supervive, which I honestly think is the right call for this game. It's very fast paced, and the last thing new players are going to want to do is sit around trying to figure out what to build. And those few things only scratch the surface for the amount of MOBA light elements there are inside of Supervive. I didn't really talk at all about coins, the shop that much, consumables, powers, which are Supervive summoner spells, recalling to base camp, you name it. Supervive has essentially taken every aspect of League of Legends and alternate in some way to fit into a battle royale. All of these changes to classic MOBA elements to make them fit inside of a battle royale causes Supervive to feel very different from other MOBAs like League of Legends, Dota 2, and now Deadlock. But just because the game feels different doesn't mean it can't scratch that legendary competitive MOBA itch. So I hopped onto Supervive to see what the playing experience was like. I started out in the tutorial and it was pretty good. They had some intro videos which walked you through the basic elements of the game. I learned that you moved around with the WASD keys, jumped by pressing spacebar, can also glide by holding the spacebar, shoot your weapon with left click, and use your abilities with right click, Q, left shift, and R. After the tutorial, they basically tell you to just hop into a game, as that's the best way to learn.
Okay, so it's telling me just to play. I guess I just play, no?
And honestly, the basics of the game were simple enough that I felt like I could get by with a bit of trial and error. So I queued up and locked in Kingpin, whose abilities took pretty obvious inspiration from Blitzcrank in League and Roadhog in Overwatch. He had the classic grappling hook, some close-range crowd control, and a shotgun. His hook was such a fun ability to use,
Get over.
as I could pull enemies from essentially across the screen, stunning them and blowing them up point blank, as well as accidentally troll my teammates by pulling them out of their own engagements. Speaking of teammates, one of the things I was quick to discover about supervised PvP is that your teammates can make or break your experience. There are two main game modes, duos and 4-person squads. In both of these game modes, communication is very important, so you can coordinate where you want to go or how to play out a big fight. And when you're queuing up by yourself, it's complete luck of the draw who you're going to team up with. Sometimes you get somebody without a mic who enjoys running in front of trains, and other times you get teammates who are an absolute joy to play with and make the experience so much fun. Because I really wanted to see what this game would be like with a friend and consistent duo partner, I asked my buddy Jack to hop on and give this game a try with me. And also, it says right on the Theorycraft website that they make, quote, games that are just better with friends. And honestly, they're right. We had a blast over the couple of hours that we played together. We felt pretty comfortable with the teamfight style coming from League, so just hopped right into Ranked after one normal game to warm up, and kind of dominated.
Okay, we're just killing everyone?
We're
Halting him? Okay, he's dead. Oh, on them? We won!
Died.
Like, this game's actually sick.
Alright, he's so buck.
Easy? I'm halting him. Okay, he's dead. GG.
Alright, well,
Okay.
game.
What is going on? Like, oh, dude, we're just winning every game.
At some points,
Sniper
it kind of
around,
felt like we
sniper
might have
around.
been playing against bots,
On me.
but we were playing in the lowest rank, as that's where everyone starts in their system. A bronze 3.
Let's go.
So I really
Poggers.
don't know. Either way, in the really competitive matches that Jack and I found, it was by far the most fun I had in Supervive.
Yo, this game is so much easier when you're playing with someone who you know. It's wild, the difference.
Jack and I both said that we'd easily play this game again because it was amazing playing with friends. Not only does it feel insanely competitive as you're trying to teamfight your way to first place in a battle royale, but it's also super fun and fast-paced throughout the entire match. I can also see how, as you learn more about this game and climb the ranks, it could become a really fun game to play mechanically and an amazing showcase for some sick plays. However, because the game feels so inherently different from a traditional MOBA, it didn't really scratch that same competitive itch for me. Unlike Deadlock, who kept a lot of those MOBA elements intact, Supervive chose to change many of them in order to keep the game fast-paced and focused on more team-fighting mechanics instead of traditional MOBA macro. Either way, I'm just so happy we have some more new options in the MOBA space that are adding new players, new variety, and new life into what I believe is one of the best game genres of all time. We have one developer keeping the traditional MOBA feel alive, but presenting it in a hero shooter package that is much more intriguing and familiar to the modern Zoomer gamer, and another keeping their MOBA at the top-down perspective, preserving those amazing teamfights, but simplifying the other MOBA elements that new gamers might find tedious. It'll be interesting to see how these differing approaches to innovating on the MOBA genre will appeal to gamers in the future. But what I want to hear about now is what you think about these games. This has all, of course, just been my opinion, and I'd love to know what you think the future of the MOBA genre is with Deadlock and Supervive down in the comments below. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe while you're down there for a chance at a Steam gift card.